On the morning of her birthday, Lucy's mother woke her up and told her a package had arrived in the mail, and it was addressed to her. The girl hurried up and unwrapped the package and was horrified at what she found inside. It was the most disgusting old doll she had ever seen. It was completely bald, and its skin was cracked and caked in dirt. The worst thing of all was its teeth. They were long, pointy, sharp, and beastly. They looked like some sort of animal's fangs. With a shiver, she took the doll and threw it in a corner. Her mother scolded her, telling her that someone had gone through a lot of trouble to send her that antique doll. Her mother told her she had better appreciate it. Lucy tried to protest, but her mother would not listen. She forced the young girl to keep the doll. So, to put her mind at rest, Lucy stuffed the antique doll into the little cupboard under the stairs, behind the pile of shoes where she wouldn't have to look at the ugly, evil little thing. It was not until a few nights later when Lucy was laying in bed and she heard a noise, a shuffling sound, which went on for about 5 minutes. Then a brief dragging noise, and finally a scuttling like footsteps walking very fast. By now Lucy was shaking her head in bed with fear, unable to move. Then she thought she heard a faint, raspy voice whispering quietly from downstairs. Lucy always slept with the door open and the landing light on, as she was a little scared of the dark. She heard the voice say, "Lucy, I'm on the first step," and then a loud, scrabbling noise again, as whatever was speaking apparently turned tail and returned to its place of hiding. Lucy was so scared that she didn't sleep a wink that night, but laid in fear until the break of dawn, when her mother got her up for school. Lucy tried to explain to her mother what had happened the night before, but she was so tired that when her mother passed it off as just a dream. She began to believe it might be the case, but of course it wasn't. Lucy had begged her parents to let her throw the antique doll in the garbage, but insisted that it was a present and that she had to keep it. So Lucy reluctantly went back to bed, telling herself that it had only been a dream. She checked the cupboard under the stairs, but the doll was exactly where Lucy had left her that night. Lucy fought sleep, but she eventually drifted off, even though she had fought to stay awake. Presently, the deep, disembodied voice woke her up again. She wondered if she could only hear it in her head. "Lucy, I'm on the 4th step," it said. Then came the scuffling noises, and the voice didn't reoccur that night. Lucy was crying by now, and again, she didn't sleep that night. At school, Lucy told her friends about the doll, and of course they laughed at her. Lucy could only think that if the doll was climbing 4 steps at a time, that there was only one more night to go. That night, Lucy decided to shut her bedroom door. When her mother turned out her light, she asked why Lucy was no longer scared of the dark. Lucy replied that she was, and could she leave her light on instead of the hall light. But her mother pointed out that her bedroom light was so bright that it would keep her awake, and she said no. Therefore, Lucy agreed to just sleep without a light. She opened the bedroom curtains instead to light the room a little anyway. Just as she began to doze, she heard the noise, and the voice came. Very, very clear this time. "Lucy, I'm on the top step." In the darkness of her bedroom, Lucy heard a click and trembled with fear. She wasn't sure, but she thought she could see her bedroom door opening very, very slowly. The next morning, Lucy's parents found her body at the bottom of the stairs. They guessed that she had been on her way to the toilet during the night, and in the darkness slipped and fallen down the stairs, breaking her neck. The antique doll was found beside her body and was buried with Lucy. Everyone said what a tragedy it was. "She loved that doll," said her mother. "Now they can be together forever." I want to tell you about a girl and a doll. I know what you're thinking. You've heard this story before. A little girl wants a doll, someone buys it for her, and then the doll goes mental and kills everyone. Well, you're wrong. This is a different kind of story. It happened back in 2009 when I was 16. One day, as I was walking home from school, I noticed that a new family had moved into the house at the end of my street. They were a young married couple, and they had a little daughter who looked like she may have been around 6 years old. She wore a white dress, white socks, and black shoes, and her hair was long and black, and she was holding a doll in her arms. The doll had on a white dress and also had long black hair. In fact, it looked almost exactly like a miniature version of the girl. Every day on my way home from school, I saw the little girl. She was always sitting there outside her house, cradling the doll in her arms and watching me as I passed by. There was something about the way she stared at me and the cold, dark look in her eyes that really unnerved me. At night, I couldn't sleep. I was plagued by the very strange dreams and woke up in a cold sweat. I can only vaguely remember the dreams, but they all involved the girl and the doll. This went on night after night, and the lack of sleep had left me exhausted. There was an old lady who had lived next door, and she was very inquisitive. She was one of these old women who knew everything about everyone, and she was always eavesdropping and sticking her nose into other people's business. One day, as I was walking to school, she grabbed me by the arm, and in a hushed tone, she said that she had something to tell me. She wanted to talk about the family who moved into the house at the end of the street. "You don't want to mess with them," she told me. "They're not good people. I've heard that they're always on the move and never stay for very long. And that daughter of theirs, did you know that she's adopted? She's not right in the head either. I've heard rumors that she's the offspring of the devil, and the doll she carries around is not a doll at all, but a demon made in her image." I just rolled my eyes and walked away, dismissing it as the idle gossip of a crazy old woman. But oh, how silly I was. How I wish I had listened to the warnings of that crazy old lady. A few days later, there was a knock at our front door. When I answered it, a young woman was standing there. She was the mother of the little girl with the doll. "Hello," she said. "I'm your neighbor, and I'd like to ask you to do me a favor." "Sure," I replied. "What is it?" "Well, something unexpectedly came up," she said, "and I have to go on an errand, and my husband doesn't get home from work until later. I'll only be gone a few hours, but I need someone to look after my daughter while I'm gone. I know it's short notice, but could you take care of her?" "Well, of course," I said. "What's your daughter's name?" "Her name is Lisa," the mother replied, "but we need to leave now, so if you don't mind." I followed the woman to her house, and I waited while she rushed upstairs. When she returned, she was leading the little girl by the hand. As soon as I saw her, I was taken aback. There was something wrong with her. Her eyes were completely black, like the eyes of a shark, and she was still clutching that wretched doll in her arms. I didn't know what it was about that doll that creeped me out so much. Perhaps it was because it looked so much like the little girl that it was disturbing and uncanny. Before I had a chance to back out, the mother said her goodbyes, then got into the car and drove away. Without a word, Lisa reached up and took me by the hand. Her skin was ice cold to the touch, and it sent a shiver down my spine. "Play with me," she said. So we went upstairs to her bedroom, but as soon as I closed the door, I began to feel uneasy. I could detect a strange, unpleasant smell in the room, but I couldn't figure out what it was or where it was coming from. I played with Lisa for about 30 minutes, but then I began to feel a tightness in my chest. I broke out into a cold sweat and my stomach was churning. I felt like I was going to vomit. "I have to go," I gasped. All of a sudden, Lisa scrambled to her feet and cried out, "No, you're not going. You're going to stay here with me forever, and we'll play all the time." She stared at me with those cold black eyes, and I felt like I was going to faint. I was frightened and I wanted to get out of that room. But when I tried to open the door, the handle wouldn't turn. I began rattling it and pulling on it, but it was no use. So I ran to the window and I tried to open it, but it wouldn't budge. No matter what I tried, I couldn't open it. Then I remembered the warning of the old woman and cursed myself for not listening to her. I was trembling with fear, but I decided to recite a prayer. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. As soon as I uttered those words, the little girl let out an ear-splitting screech. She screamed so loud that I thought I was going deaf and I had to clasp my hands over my ears, but I never stopped reciting the prayer. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. The girl dropped the doll and it fell to the floor. All of a sudden, it came to life and it came at me, gnashing its teeth and scratching with its clawed hands like a feral animal. I tried to kick it away, but it jumped at my neck and tried to tear my throat out. I fell backwards on the bed, desperately trying to fight the doll off. It was a terrible struggle. The doll was thrashing back and forth, scraping me and tearing at my clothes. Every time it got its hands around my neck, it started to throttle me. Eventually, I got the upper hand. I grabbed it by the legs and swung it with all my might, smashing its head against the wall. It hit the wall so hard that it left a dent in the plaster. A crack split the doll's face in two, and a thick black smoke began pouring out. And give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. The doll lay on the floor, shaking and wriggling, flopping back and forth like a dying fish. The doll's head split wider, and the smoke billowing out grew thicker and thicker. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. When I finished reciting the prayer, Lisa was laying in the middle of the room, unconscious, and the doll was a little more than a steaming pile of molten plastic, hissing and bubbling on the carpet. Just then, Lisa's mother came home. She ran upstairs and burst into the room, demanding to know what happened. I tried to explain, but I couldn't get the words out. I threw up all over the floor. When Lisa regained consciousness, she said that she remembered nothing. Nothing at all. I looked into her eyes. The blackness was gone, and there was a bright, vibrant shade of blue. 3 years later, when she was only 9 years old, Lisa died suddenly. She had drank an entire bottle of bleach, and it corroded her insides. She died in tremendous pain, screaming and crying in agony as her organs slowly broke down and dissolved. The doctors ruled it an accident, but everybody suspected that she had taken her own life. Her parents were devastated. No one could explain why a girl so young would do such a thing. A week after the funeral, her mother and father moved out of the house. It held too many bad memories. As they were going through Lisa's bedroom and packing up her belongings, they found something glued to the back of her mirror. It was a photo of Lisa and the doll. On the other side, written in a childish scrawl, was a message. She has returned to us. For those who answer our call will be damned forever.